Well, welcome into the bottom of Enterprise Center where the work's done here for the late shift. Our guest tonight, Jay Bouwmeester, in 17 seasons in the NHL now, or 18 now coming in on. And you've got 1,200 games or so under your belt, 418 points. Let's see, a couple World Championships, World Junior medals, Olympic gold. It's quite a resume. And is there anything that you'd like to do, less than doing interviews and sitting through this?
You get used to it, though. I think I'm better at it now. I used to be real bad. Just hated doing it, but it's not all bad.
No, it's not bad. Listen, there's so many things that I look at. I'm impressed by your resume, Bo. And like I said, you're one of 29 guys that are the triple gold winner, World Championships, Olympic gold, of course the Stanley Cup. It's an impressive resume, certainly. But for me as a player, one of the most impressive things that I look at and I notice is your fifth in a game streak that you had, 700 and was it 37 games? Like, how hard was it not to be able to go out and play in that next game and have that broken?
It wasn't that hard because obviously when you have a streak like that, you're pretty lucky with injuries. There's little things that you can get through, but it was something that I knew I couldn't play. I couldn't skate. So, it was one of those things like you'd pass a certain number and someone would ask you about it, but I don't know. You just play the games. I mean, everybody's, if they can play, they're going to play, and it was almost like you didn't want to talk about it because you didn't want to jinx it or whatever, and you knew it was going to come to an end at some point. So, there's I think a couple of guys now that are going pretty good, and they're in like the 800s. I mean, Patty Marleau, he's about 40 years old. I think he's played about 800 games in a row. So. I don't know, it's something you look back on, it's kind of cool. Actually, when I got traded here, they did, St. Louis and Calgary were playing on the same day, but because of the time change, the game started an hour apart, so they did the trade in between. I think the St. Louis game had started, and the Calgary game hadn't started yet, so they traded me in between there, got the paperwork done, so that actually kept it going.
The streak alive.
Yeah, so I don't know who came up with that or actually had the insight to do that, but that was nice, I guess.
Well, I mean, when you talk about, the accomplishments, and you came in as a 19-year-old player, and you got to do so much leading up to that. I mean, you won a midget championship. Did you win the brick tournament?
Yeah, a couple times.
You won the brick tournament a couple times. It's a huge minor hockey tournament in Edmonton, and then you of course, you won the midget championship, and you're in the World Juniors. It has to be sort of you come to the league as a 19-year-old, it still has to be an eye-opener, and how was that for you?
Well, it's a dream that you have, and I think it becomes maybe more attainable when you go play junior hockey, and that's when you get a sense of, okay, where you stack up against different guys, and then the draft, and it was a high draft pick, so there's, I guess, expectations to play right away. I look back now, and in Florida, we didn't have the greatest teams, but on one hand, it was good because you got kind of thrown into the fire and you got to play, and you learn a lot. It's just kind of the progression. It goes from watching on TV, and then all of a sudden you're out on the ice against some of these guys, and I'm lucky because I always tell people I'm lucky because I got to play 2 years before the year-long lockout.
Oh yeah, right.
And there were so many guys that were playing at that time, like Brett Hull and Al McInnes, and these guys that I actually got to play against.
Right.
And those were guys that I watched growing up. So everybody has those stories and those guys that you're, I guess, playing against that you're not in awe of, because once the game starts, you just play. But back then there were some teams that were, there's no salary cap. There were some loaded teams, and I remember we went into a couple of buildings, and it was like, I don't know what the odds of us actually winning would have been, but they weren't very good.
Those Detroit teams at that time, pretty good. Was there some time on the ice where you just kind of were like, I can't believe I'm standing by this guy? Who was that guy?
Probably Mark Messier. I grew up in Edmonton. He was obviously a huge part of the Oilers when I was a little young. I didn't really grasp like their real glory days in the 80s, but I remember their last cup there, and well, yeah, that's going way back. But my dad had actually taught. My dad, I think, his first year teaching school, he taught Mark Messier in like a phys ed class or something.
Oh, really?
So it was. I don't know if he'd remember my dad, probably not, but it was always kind of a thing that I knew, and then all of a sudden he was a great player, and I got to play against him, and it was, lots of guys, but that's one that sticks out.
Yeah, that was actually the same guy for me, where I stand on the ice, and I just couldn't believe that there he is, and he was this larger-than-life kind of guy, and there he was. And I talked to your dad a little bit yesterday, and I was asking him, I said, when did you know, like, was he always a skater? And he said, well, he spent a lot of time. He said, actually, his sister was your sister's 2 years older than you.
Yeah.
And he said he heard this crash in the basement one time, and he said, we go running downstairs, and he's got his sister's roller skates on and smashed into a bunch of stuff in the basement, because he said he used to just unfinished basement, and you were whipping around down there, and he goes, but man, he just loved to play. And so, because I was trying to pick his brain a little bit about it, he said, no, we worked on a lot of his skating, but he said you just loved being out there, and he had an outdoor rink as well.
Yeah, I think the roller skates are funny because it was, I don't know, it makes me feel old, right? Because there weren't any
Nobody knows what those are right now.
No, well, there weren't rollerblades yet. I remember when the first rollerblades came out, and I think my cousin had a pair, and I'm like, oh man, these are sweet. But yeah, the house we grew up in, the basement wasn't finished, so my dad kind of hung a tarp and put a net out, and that was it. Like a lot of guys, I think if you ask a lot of guys, they probably have some sort of setup like that when they're kids, and whenever the friends come over or whatever, you're just playing hockey. And that was, I was talking with someone the other day, like maybe just because I have kids now, like what kids do now, and someone asked me, like, what did you do like when you were a kid? Like, all I remember doing was playing hockey pretty much in your spare time. So yeah, I think it's just in Canada you grow up with it. It's right there, and then you kind of fall in love with it, and it's fun. And that's how you end up kind of working on things,
right?
Enjoying it.
And your dad was a hockey player, played for the Alberta Golden Bears, University Alberta Golden Bears, and so we got some pictures. Oh, there's the brick. That's the championship. Yeah. All right. Oh, and there's your dad, Dan. And of course, we were talking to him a little bit about, he said, well, we used to go on the ice. He said he used to train with Norman Lacombe. I said, I am amazed by the fact that not your longevity, because I think it's special as it is, but your ability to play at the level that you play at. The longevity is one thing, but you still maintain a certain standard and expectation of yourself, and it has a lot to do with the training. And I asked your dad about it. He said Norman Lacombe said he's never seen anyone train harder, and he said we used to have some 3-on-3 games, and Jamie McLennan, of course, calls me and goes, oh, you got to give him grief. His dad used to ref these games in the summer, was it?
Perry Pern, 3-on-3.
Yeah, 3-on-3. And he said we used to just give Bo's dad grief all the time. He got breaks constantly.
Well, so to go to that, so the Perry Pern 3-on-3. Perry Pern is a coach in the NHL, an assistant coach for a long time, and he ran a hockey camp in Edmonton. It was all ages, but they had a really good pro camp. And so yeah, my dad would go and help out and push, help out with practice, and then at the end you play 3-on-3, and it was 2 ends, and there'd be 2 games going on at the same time. And yeah, so I got to the age. He did it before I was playing pro, and then I was out there, and so guys like Noodles and Jason Chimera and some of these guys would give it to him, and it got to the point where he wouldn't ref my games anymore, so he'd always be at the other end because guys were giving him the gears. Yeah. But yeah, no, both my parents, obviously, when you're young playing hockey, they sacrifice a lot and do a lot to enable you to be able to pursue your dreams, I guess. But my dad was, he played hockey. He's always been involved with the university, with the alumni there. And one thing, I know the work that he's done with the alumni with the university that I appreciate with the alumni that we have here with this team is, it's special. When you talk to guys that played at the school up there, they have a good program. They always have good teams, but they're always willing to kind of stick around and do things with the alumni, and it's a pretty cool thing. And I know he's been very involved for a long time, and it's something that's pretty close to to his heart.
Well, I can tell that because talking about the fraternity that they have there and about how those guys are all together and they can make a phone call, and whether it's in business or whatever, there's always someone with that program that helps out someone else. My brother lives in the city there, so I'm familiar with it very much. And I also asked him, I said, he's had so many accomplishments. I said, I believe I know the answer to this, but tell me about, the largest need. He said, Jay doesn't say much, but I've never seen him, the expression. I could tell you just were exuding this passion when you picked up the Stanley Cup, when you guys won the Cup, because I could just tell this was a different thing for him. So was that the best of all of the accomplishments?
Absolutely. It was, all the other stuff, it's great, and you have to get lucky. I've played on a lot of international teams and things like that, and you have to kind of, number one, get lucky to be on the team, and then playing with Canada, you usually have a strong team, so you're expected to do well, and when you do, it's a great honor to represent your country and be a part of those. But those are...
Is that a different kind of pressure?
Yeah, a little bit. It's the pressure that you better not lose.
Right, that's what I mean.
So you don't want to be the guy that messes something up or something like that. But it's different just because of the time that you spend with guys. I mean, you go to the Olympics or something like that, and it's a cool experience. And but you're only together for a month or so. With the Cup, you do it with guys that you played with for, since I've been here, I think this is my 8th year here. Guys like Petro and Steiner, and you really develop relationships, and it's such a special thing. And I think that was one thing I said to somebody after last year was, you play with so many guys and you keep in touch, and you do with the guys that you're close with, but you'll never get back together with a full team of guys. And,
right.
And that's the coolest thing, is because down the road you'll one day I'm sure we'll come back every number of years or whatever, and have a little reunion or something, and, and it's really cool because it's the only way you're actually going to see those guys. So it's something you work towards. Everybody, I think when last year when it happened, it was just kind of like surreal, and it took a really long time to sink in. And
was it a relief?
I wouldn't say it was a relief. Everybody wants to win,
right?
So I guess on one hand it was maybe, you always wonder if you finished your career and you never won, what it would have been like. But that whole run, like when you're just in it, you're really absorbed with it, and it was really until kind of the buzzer went, you're still pretty focused. And and you saw tonight with Pat and Maroon coming back, and just that's kind of the bond that guys have. You're just so happy to see a guy like that and to get his ring, and that his story and being the hometown guy that did really well. Just guys are so genuinely happy for the guy, and it's cool because I once heard someone say that guys do team building exercise at the start of the year and you try to team build, and then I think it was Daryl Sutter or somebody's like, well, all your team buildings in April, May, and June, and it's so true. When you go on a long run like that, guys just, it creates something that you can't really mimic.
Gel together and create something. Well, you're one of 29 special players that have won the triple gold. And I know you're humble about the honor or whatever, but did you kind of know, like, we were watching the monitor, and of course you've done all of these things, and you've been able to win Olympics and World Championships and a World Cup, and then of course the Stanley Cup. Was it do you start, does it sink in a little bit, and then when you seen Phil Pritchard come in the locker room, did you know what was going on, or did they tell you it was coming?
No, I knew that was kind of a thing where, but I didn't know they did anything for it or gave you anything. I thought it was just your name's on a list and, feather in your cap or whatever. So it was cool. Yeah, I honestly didn't know how many guys had done it. I thought there was more. And then we were talking, and it's kind of a unique thing because you kind of have to play on a bad team or bad teams to go to the World Championships to win that one, and then obviously the other end of it is you have to go all the way and win the Cup, and then you have to get the opportunity to play in the Olympics. So from when you look at it, a lot of guys don't ever get the chance to maybe do some of those things. So, yeah, I mean, it's that sort of thing. I think now, I do appreciate it now as I'm older, but I think those are things that down the road when I'm not playing, I'll be able to look back on and appreciate it more, I think.
Very good. Well, I know that you went to the Hockey Hall of Fame as well, and I know you were, you know, probably surprised a little bit that there was a collection of stuff that over the years guys had taken from you, but I had, in watching this and listening to the audio, I really did get a kick out of some of the guys and watching the younger guys saying, oh, he's a legend, look at this. And they've got stuff from Medicine Hat, they've got stuff from your early years in Florida. And it's, were you surprised at all that they had this stuff? Because or did you even know that they collected?
Yeah, because a lot of those things, you go to those tournaments and I didn't know they had that much stuff. I think that shows you right there just how much stuff they actually have at the Hall of Fame, because if they got that bunch of my stuff, you can only imagine. But it was, yeah, like some of those, they're always taking stuff, but you don't know, you know, what they do with it, and I knew they had a couple of sticks from the World Championships and going back, so that was kind of neat because those were real old sticks. They had like the wood blade, and some guys probably looked at it like, oh man, how'd you ever use that? But yeah, it's cool. It's I don't know how much of that stuff's ever probably been out in display in the Hall of Fame, but yeah, it's cool to say you have stuff there, I guess.
Yeah. Well, listen, are you enjoying St. Louis still? I mean, I know you re-sign, you take an extension in it, and do you have any idea when you start looking? You said it'd be good to look back on it so you get to reflect. When you're looking forward, I know you love St. Louis, and asked you, but do you have any like goals in mind for the longevity of your career? Because you're skating like you're 25, which is odd because of the operations you've had in your hips.
No, I feel pretty good. Yeah, I mean, I'm at the age now, I know lots of guys that are not playing anymore, and they all say play as long as you can. So obviously I like, St. Louis has been good for me and my family, and the hockey's been great. So yeah, I think it's, last year when I signed the 1-year extension, it was just kind of see how things go, and then things went really well last year. So yeah, we'll see. It's just kind of take it.
So we can expect you 10 more years at least?
I don't think so. I think my wife said there's something, she said I got till I'm 40. I'm like, I don't know if I'll make it that long. So. Okay, so
where do you see yourself when this ends? What do you find yourself doing?
I don't know 100% yet. I think it is hard. You do get on with your career, and you do start thinking about what am I going to do afterwards, and you know, there's interests that you have, but it's also hard to really seriously pursue something, because there is a lot of work that you have to put in day to day as you kind of get older, and it's time consuming. So right now I think I'm just focused on just enjoying it. I think genuinely I do appreciate and enjoy coming to the rink and playing the games, and you know, the travel gets long sometimes, but the games you don't ever get to do this again. Just the competition and the you're literally you're. Do
you think you could play a whole game?
No. No chance.
Well, then what would you rather do? Play a whole game, or 3 minutes with Andy Strickland in an interview?
Oh, I don't know. I know I couldn't play the whole game though, so I might have to do the interview.
Oh, that's great. Well, listen, we appreciate your time. You're an absolute professional, and I got to tell you, man, I couldn't be happier for a guy with what you. I know you silently went about taking care of your injuries when you were playing in the off season and stuff, but now that we appreciate you, man. We love you here in St. Louis, so stick around.
Well, thanks a lot. Yeah, as long as they'll take me, I'll be here, because I've enjoyed it here. I really have. It's a great city, and sports now, and people, the way they support the Blues, it's great people.